Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, Parallel Deku, back with another fanfiction. This is the movie of What If Deku Was Betrayed and Reborn. Now before starting, please give this video a like. And subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. The day began like any other for Class 1A, filled with morning training. However, when Izuku Midoriya returned to the dorms, he found them empty. After washing up and getting ready for class, he entered the classroom, only to be met with hostile stares from his classmates. They accused him of betrayal, and Uraraka expressed her anger, questioning why he was still there. Before the situation escalated, Aizawa intervened, using his capture scarf to escort Izuku to the principal's office. Upon arriving at Nizu's office, Izuku was immediately confronted with accusations of stealing files and handing them over to the League of Villains. Confused and shocked, he denied the allegations, insisting he had done nothing of the sort. Nizu presented a recording that appeared to show Izuku committing the act, leaving him in disbelief. All Might then entered the room, demanding Izuku return One for All, claiming that a villain should not possess such a power. Despite Izuku's protests, he felt the weight of the situation and, after being physically confronted by All Might, surrendered One for All, realizing that no one would believe his innocence. As he was taken away in a police car, Mirio and his friends arrived, with Eri on Mirio's shoulder, along with Nejire, Tamaki, and Bakugo. Mirio expressed his belief in Izuku's innocence, and Bakugo echoed that sentiment, albeit with a hint of anger. Izuku felt a tear roll down his cheek as he wondered why they believed him when even All Might did not. Mirio reassured him, explaining that he had known Izuku his entire life and was certain he would never betray his friends. Grateful for their support, Izuku thanked them with a smile before entering the car, which drove away to the prison. Once the car was out of sight, Nejire fell to her knees, holding her hands to her chest as she cried. Mirio, Tamaki, and Bakugo wore expressions of anger, vowing to do everything in their power to prove Izuku's innocence. They returned to UA with heavy hearts, determined to fight for their friend. Nejire's belief in Izuku's innocence was rooted in her feelings for him, which had developed after the overhaul fight. She was heartbroken that her crush had been framed and sent to a prison notorious for housing the worst criminals. She hoped that he would be proven innocent so she could confess her feelings. When Izuku arrived at the prison, the guards questioned why a child his age was in such a place. He explained that he had been framed by someone with a transformation quirk who had stolen files about UA students and teachers. As he spoke, tears streamed down his face, and the guards recognized his genuine distress. One guard, Felix, assured him that he believed him, stating that Izuku did not seem like the kind of person who would commit such an act. Felix promised to protect him, knowing that other inmates would pose a threat once they learned of his background. Izuku felt a glimmer of hope as he was led to his cell, a solitary confinement space. Felix assured him that he would inform the other guards about his situation and ensure his safety. Grateful, Izuku began his life in prison, feeling a mix of despair and determination. The first week passed without incident, and Izuku met some of the guards who promised to look out for him. However, in the second week, other prisoners noticed the guards' protective behavior and began to view it as favoritism. They plotted to attack him whenever they had the chance. By the third week, the situation escalated. During lunch, a group of prisoners ambushed Izuku, using a makeshift weapon that resulted in a severe injury to his right eye. The guards rushed to his aid, managing to stop the bleeding, but the damage was done, and Izuku lost his eye. This traumatic event shattered his will to live, and he spent his days in his cell, unresponsive and despondent. The guards frequently checked on him, worried about his well-being. In his dreams, Izuku found himself in an unfamiliar place, surrounded by 8 figures. Confused and frightened, he wondered who they were, sensing that his journey was far from over. The deadly sins approached Deku with a proposition. They wanted him to become their successor. This revelation shocked him, as he questioned why he should trust them when his own idol had betrayed him. Just then, a short boy with messy blonde hair and emerald green eyes embraced him, promising that they would not betray him. After contemplating his situation, Deku decided to accept their offer, realizing he had little to lose. Meliodas introduced himself and the others present: Ban, King, Diane, Merlin, Escaner, Gauther, and Elizabeth. He informed Deku that their training would last for 8 years. Deku, taken aback, expressed his disbelief at the length of time. Meliodas reassured him that in the real world, 8 years would feel like only 8 days. With that, they began their training journey together, marking the start of a new chapter in Deku's life as he embraced his role as their successor. In UA High School, tensions ran high as everyone believed that Izuku Midoriya, known as Deku, had betrayed them. The only exception was Katsuki Bakugo, who stood firmly by his friend. Bakugo expressed his frustration, insisting that he had known Deku his entire life and was certain he would never betray them. As the class continued, Bakugo's mind raced with thoughts of how to prove Deku's innocence. Suddenly, an idea struck him, and he abruptly left the classroom, declaring that he was going to find the evidence needed to clear Deku's name. His sudden departure surprised everyone, but he was determined. On his way to Deku's dorm, Bakugo encountered the Big Three, who were curious about his haste. He explained his mission, and they quickly decided to join him, realizing that if Bakugo was right, they could finally prove Deku's innocence. Nejire, one of the Big Three, felt a mix of hope and anxiety, knowing that if they succeeded, she might have the chance to confess her feelings to Deku. Upon reaching Deku's room, Bakugo searched frantically until he found a notebook. He exclaimed with excitement that he had discovered the evidence that would prove Deku's innocence. The Big Three rushed upstairs, intrigued by Bakugo's find. The notebook contained crucial information about the quirks of their classmates and teachers, including weaknesses and other details. Understanding the significance of the notebook, they realized it could clear Deku of the accusations he faced. Without wasting any time, they rushed to Principal Niza's office, bursting through the door to announce their discovery. The principal and the other teachers were taken aback and demanded to see the evidence. Bakugo presented the notebook to Nizu, who quickly flipped through its pages. As he processed the information, he recognized its value and the implications it held. Realizing that they had been misled, Nizu called for all the teachers to witness the findings. They reviewed the security footage and confirmed that Himiko Toga was the true culprit behind the theft of the files. Bakugo felt a surge of triumph as he watched the teachers' expressions shift from disbelief to guilt. He couldn't help but shout in victory, reminding everyone that he had believed in Deku all along. Meanwhile, All Might reflected on his failure to trust his successor, feeling a deep sense of regret. Niza decided to take action, planning to visit Midnight and request that Izuku Midoriya be allowed to rejoin UA. After ensuring that their findings remained confidential, Nizu and Midnight set off to speak with Deku. When Aizawa and Bakugo returned to Class 1A, they noticed Bakugo's wide grin and Aizawa's serious demeanor. Curious about what had transpired, they asked for an explanation. Aizawa simply stated that there would be no school for 3 days as he needed time to think. The Big Three, Bakugo, and Eri felt a sense of relief and happiness, though they kept the details of their discovery to themselves. Now, they could only wait for Deku's return, anticipating his reaction and hoping he would forgive those who had doubted him. For 1 year, Deku trained with Meliodas, learning the art of swordsmanship and undergoing a transformation into a demon. He mastered how to activate his demon mark and its various forms, absorbing all of Meliodas's abilities. He upgraded his full counter technique to a perfect counter, which could counter all attacks, and learned Counter Vanish, a skill that made long-range attacks disappear. At the end of his training, Meliodas gifted Deku Lost Vein and taught him how to wield it, along with some of his more unconventional techniques. In the second year, Ban took Deku under his wing, teaching him how to use his sacred treasure, Kurchaus, and how to fight effectively with it. Ban also granted Deku a portion of his immortal body, allowing him to survive as long as not all of his 7 hearts were destroyed. Deku learned Ban's magic, Snatch, which enabled him to steal organs and physical energy, and he became less shy, even picking up some cooking skills along the way. During the 3rd year, Merlin trained Deku in the arts of magic. He quickly grasped some of her basic spells and, as the year progressed, advanced to more complex ones. She entrusted him with her sacred treasure, the Morning Star Aldawn, which significantly improved his magical control, bringing it to a level that rivaled her own. With Merlin's guidance, he also became more comfortable around women. In the 4th year, Gowther taught Deku how to use his magic, invasion, and gave him his sacred treasure, Herit. Deku learned to enter people's minds, creating nightmares or pleasant dreams, altering memories, and even deleting them. His magical skills improved significantly thanks to Gowther's training. In the 5th year, King trained Deku in the use of his sacred treasure, Spirit Spear Chastifol, and its various forms. King also made Deku part fairy, giving him a unique blend of abilities. He taught Deku magic skills such as disaster, levitation, heart reading, which allowed him to understand others' thoughts and feelings, and status promotion, enabling him to escalate minor injuries into serious ones. In the 6th year, Diane trained Deku in the art of Droll's dance and gifted him her sacred treasure, the War Hammer Gideon. This training made Deku part giant, enhancing his physical prowess, and he learned how to fight effectively in his giant form, mstring her special ability, Heavy Metal. In the 7th year, Elizabeth introduced Deku to the powers of the goddess race, including Arc and Omega Arc. He also learned healing abilities from her, becoming part goddess himself. Elizabeth helped him grow more comfortable interacting with appealing women, and during this time, Deku found himself oddly comparing Elizabeth's appearance to Nejir's, which left him puzzled. In the 8th year, Escaner taught Deku to embrace his pride and control his ability, Sunshine, along with his magical attacks. He encouraged Deku to have confidence in his powers, reminding him that he possessed the abilities of many powerful beings. Escaner also provided him with a divine axe, Rita, and a special amulet from Merlin to help suppress his sunshine ability during the daytime. As his training concluded, Meliodas gathered everyone to inform Deku that it was time to return to the real world. Although this made Deku sad, he was reassured that he would always carry their presence within him. They all shared a heartfelt hug before he awakened in his cell. When Felix noticed Deku had woken up, he entered to check on him. Felix immediately recognized the changes in Deku. He had become more muscular and taller, now standing at 188 centimeters. His hair had blonde tips, a testament to his transformation. Before Felix could ask what had happened, he mentioned that Deku had visitors who had been trying to see him for 8 days. After changing into better clothes, Deku entered the visitor space, where he was met with the sight of Aizawa, Nizu, and Midnight. Anger surged within him as he revealed his demon mark, questioning their intentions. Nizu explained that Bakugo had found proof of Deku's innocence, and after reviewing security footage, they discovered that Toga was the real culprit. They wanted Deku to return to UA, as he was innocent. Deku agreed but laid down 3 conditions. First, he requested a soundproof room larger than the dorms. Nizu found this reasonable. Second, Deku expressed a longing to stay in Class 3A dorms instead of Class 1A, due to the mistrust he felt from most of his former classmates. Nizu agreed to this as well. Finally, Deku insisted that any future requests he made must be fulfilled, which surprised the teachers, but Nizu ultimately accepted. Just as Deku was about to say goodbye to his friends, Nizu's phone rang, prompting him to hurry. He explained that Class 1A, Class 1B, the Big Three, and All Might were engaged in a battle against the League of Villains at the USJ. Deku quickly thanked Felix for guarding him and used his teleportation ability to change into a green hoodie, revealing a tattoo of Meliodas's wrath on his arm. As everyone expressed their confusion, Deku assured them he would explain later and teleported away, leaving them all in shock. At the USJ, All Might faced 3 high-tier Nomu, each a different color. Shigaraki taunted him, laughing maniacally and questioning how his successor was faring. All Might, furious, retorted that it was Shigaraki's fault that Deku was imprisoned. Because he didn't believe he was innocent, Shigaraki's words made All Might feel guiltier than ever. He was filled with remorse for failing everyone, especially for not believing in young Midoriya. As he accepted his fate, believing he was dead, the others struggled to see through the smoke. They questioned if he was truly gone, their faces reflecting horror. As the smoke cleared, All Might was visible, but a new figure emerged, adorned with a dragon tattoo on his left shoulder. The figure expressed disappointment at the turn of events after being absent for 4 weeks, waving his hand dismissively. All Might was shocked and questioned if it could be young Midoriya. The others were in disbelief, while Bakugo welcomed him back with a teasing remark. Miro and Tamaki smiled happily, and Nejire cried tears of joy at the return of her crush. When the figure removed his hoodie, they confirmed he was indeed Izuku Midoriya, also known as Deku. While 4 of the 5 were overjoyed, 1 remained shocked. Deku then approached All Might, appearing right in front of him, and greeted everyone with a bright, full smile, asking if they had missed him. Deku had gained new abilities, including a tiered demon mark that allowed him to control various forms of power. His first tier could cover half of his body in darkness, while the full demon mark was more effective and helpful. He could control his assault form for only 21 minutes before going berserk, and his Demon King form was barely controllable for just 1 minute before risking self-destruction. Abilities included Hellblaze, Divine Slashes, and various forms of combat techniques. He possessed an almost immortal body as long as 1 heart remained, and his cooking skills surpassed those at Yue. Deku also had powers related to disaster management, damage promotion, levitation, and even heart and mind reading. He wielded Sunshine and the ultimate magic, which allowed him to use infinite power at the cost of his life force. His abilities extended to earth bending, transformation, healing powers, and the ability to fly. With all these powers at his disposal, Deku was ready for the challenges ahead, leaving everyone eager for the next part of their journey. Deku had recently been released from prison and was preparing to return to school when an unexpected call interrupted him. The principal informed everyone that USJ was under attack. Without hesitation, Deku rushed to the scene, saving All Might's life. After the chaos, he decided to visit his former friends, hoping to reconnect. Upon his arrival, the atmosphere was tense. Many of his classmates expressed their anger and betrayal, labeling him a traitor. Despite their hostility, Deku maintained a facade of cheerfulness, feigning a smile as he addressed them. Uraraka's words cut deep, reminding him of the rift that had formed between them. However, Nejire's sudden embrace surprised him, and he felt a warmth spread through him as she expressed how much she had missed him. Their moment was interrupted by the looming threat of a Nomu, which had been hiding behind Deku. Anticipating the attack, he allowed himself to be struck, but he quickly retaliated with a fierce counterattack that left his classmates in shock. As the Nomu's head was knocked off, panic ensued. Nejire cried out, believing Deku had been killed, while others reveled in what they thought was justice for a traitor. Bakugo, however, could no longer contain his frustration. He defended Deku, revealing that they had proven his innocence just a week prior. The revelation stunned everyone, but their disbelief was short-lived as they witnessed Deku's seemingly lifeless body spring back into action. His head reappeared, and he declared his intent to eliminate the Nomu. Deku unleashed his newfound powers, summoning a weapon and using a powerful attack that engulfed the Nomu in flames. His classmates watched in awe as he healed their wounds, including All Might's, before delivering a series of devastating strikes that left the Nomu in ruins. Shigaraki, witnessing this display of power, accused Deku of cheating, but Deku dismissed him with a retort that surprised everyone. As Deku prepared to confront the League of Villains, he summoned a massive flower that unleashed a destructive laser. He then used another ability to turn one of the Nomus to stone before shattering it with a single punch. Shigaraki's frustration grew as he continued to protest Deku's overwhelming strength. With a cruel sun at his disposal, Deku disintegrated the last Nomu, leaving Shigaraki seething with rage. In the ensuing chaos, Deku faced Shigaraki directly, delivering a powerful blow that incapacitated him. Dabi attempted to retaliate with fire, but Deku swiftly countered, inflicting a painful wound that caused Dabi to collapse. Just as he thought he had gained the upper hand, Toga approached him with a playful demeanor. However, Deku's anger surged, transforming him into a fearsome figure that shocked everyone around him. He ruthlessly incapacitated Toga, leaving his classmates horrified at the drastic change in his demeanor. As Deku prepared to unleash his full power, he created clones of himself, each possessing a fraction of his strength. The sight of multiple Dekus left his classmates in awe, and even Nejire found herself blushing at the sight. The clones swiftly dismantled the League's defenses, overpowering Compress and Spinner with ease. Just as Deku was about to return to his friends, All for One appeared, attempting to sway him to join their cause. Deku firmly rejected the offer, declaring that he had abandoned his old identity and would not rest until All for One was defeated. The confrontation escalated, and Deku charged forward, determined to end the threat once and for all. In a world where quirks defined individuals, a young man stood apart, claiming to be quirkless. He revealed that the powers he wielded were not something that could be stolen, they were tied to a deeper pain he felt during battles. This revelation left everyone astonished, as they pondered the nature of this new power that seemed to defy the very essence of quirks. He further explained that he was only 1/5 human, a statement that rendered the crowd speechless. The enigmatic figure known as Deku identified himself as the successor to the 7 deadly sins, a myth that many had dismissed as mere legend. The crowd struggled to comprehend this revelation. One individual, filled with disbelief and anger, insisted that such a thing could not be possible and vowed to take Deku down with him. However, Deku calmly countered the attack, revealing that he was a perfect counter to the aggressor's abilities. As the confrontation escalated, the attacker launched a powerful strike, but Deku absorbed the energy and redirected it back with double the strength. The result was catastrophic, leading to the demise of the attacker, while the rest of the League of Villains fell one by one, except for Kurogiri. As Kurogiri attempted to reach Shigaraki, he found Deku standing in his way. With a swift motion, Deku used his earthbending abilities to inflict a minor wound on Kurogiri, ensuring it was not enough to be fatal. In that moment, Deku had single-handedly defeated the League of Villains. Later, as Deku approached his friends, he greeted them with a casual inquiry about their well-being. However, his words were met with hostility, as those who believed him to be a traitor attacked him. He allowed the acid from their attacks to hit him, using it as a means to toy with their emotions and create confusion. Just as the chaos unfolded, the atmosphere thickened with tension, setting the stage for what was to come. Nizu arrived with reinforcements, his voice filled with urgency as he confronted Mina about her actions. Mina had declared that she had killed the traitor, but Nizu corrected her, explaining that he was not a traitor but had been framed. This revelation shocked everyone, as they had seen a video that suggested otherwise. They began to speculate that he must possess a mind control ability, but they were too stubborn to accept the truth. As they prepared to leave, Deku surprised Nejire by lifting her just below her chest, causing her to look back at him in astonishment. His face was reforming, adorned with a bright, innocent smile. Overwhelmed with joy, she thought to herself that Izuku was back, her Izuku was back. This thought surprised Deku, who revealed that he could read minds and hearts now, having heard her inner feelings. Nejire, blushing deeply, was taken aback by his revelation and asked for his answer to her unspoken question. When Deku fully reappeared, he kissed her, a gesture that shocked her initially, but she soon reciprocated. The kiss lasted for a significant moment before they separated, both breathless. Deku, his face flushed, asked if that answered her question. If not, he confessed that he liked her and wanted her to be his girlfriend. She eagerly accepted, stating that nothing would make her happier, and they embraced, sharing another kiss. Meanwhile, Uraraka watched them with jealousy, while Mirio teased them, suggesting they should focus on their duties before finding a private moment. This made both Deku and Nejire blush deeply, and they agreed to hold hands as they headed off together. As they made their way back from the USJ, everyone noticed something peculiar, a floating pillow with Deku resting on top, asleep. Nejire used her quirk to join him, blushing heavily at the sight. Upon arriving at UA, Aizawa inquired about the floating pillow, to which Deku explained that it was a manifestation of his new abilities. He promised to explain everything later, including how he had become part human and acquired new powers. However, he sensed the death glares from Class A, who were grappling with their guilt over their past actions against him. Deku, feeling betrayed, expressed his anger at their treatment of him, revealing that he had lost his left eye due to their actions. He explained that while he could regenerate it, he chose not to, as he wanted it to serve as a reminder of their betrayal. He then announced his new hero name, the Sin Hero, inspired by the powers of his teachers, the 7 deadly sins. Nejirexdeku, intrigued, asked how Deku planned to prove his innocence. Deku demonstrated his invasion power, which allowed him to share his memories with them. As they witnessed the truth, the members of Class A felt a wave of shame wash over them, especially Uraraka, who had harbored feelings for him. Deku's anger intensified as he confronted them about their betrayal, and he made a bold request to fight Class 1A, B, and the Big Three simultaneously. As the battle approached, Deku prepared himself, donning a new costume that caught Nejire's attention, making her blush. The atmosphere was tense as Aizawa signaled the start of the battle. Deku took a fighting stance, ready to face his classmates. He quickly demonstrated his abilities, surprising everyone with his power and determination. Despite the fear he instilled in them, he made it clear that he was not a killer unless provoked. The battle commenced, with Nejire unleashing her quirk and Tamaki joining the fray. Deku, using his new skills, countered their attacks with precision, showcasing the extent of his abilities. The tension in the gym was palpable as the fight unfolded, each side pushing their limits in a test of strength and resolve. As the battle intensified, Izuku activated his true form, transforming into a powerful being capable of creating 1,000 small blades. He swiftly cut through Tamaki's tentacles and seized Lost Vein, declaring a perfect counter. With a surge of energy, he redirected Nejire's attack back at her with twice the force. However, before the attack could reach its target, Deku leaped forward, catching Nejire in a protective embrace. This unexpected gesture caused her to blush deeply, while the other male classmates and Uraraka looked on with jealousy. Deku explained that the attack could have seriously injured her, and as a result, she was now out of the battle. Nejire, still flustered, agreed and stepped away. Deku then activated his Tier 1 demon mark and swiftly overwhelmed Class 1B, proclaiming their efforts pathetic. Even the strongest quirk users, like Tetsu, were unable to withstand even 1% of his power, leaving everyone in despair. He grabbed the Morning Star Aldon and unleashed a weak extermination ray, causing damage to several classmates, leaving small holes in their limbs and knocking them out. With only 3 opponents remaining, he summoned his last divine weapon, the Divine Axe Rita, and shouted for its release. The temperature in the area soared as he unleashed a cruel sun attack, shattering the ground beneath him. Only Bakugo and Mirio remained conscious. Using his goddess powers, Deku healed his fallen classmates, revealing a more muscular version of himself that made the girls blush even more. With immense pride, he informed them that they had survived just 1% of his power and offered a glimpse of what 2% would look like. He executed a short jump that resembled teleportation and incapacitated Bakugo with a swift finger jab. Turning to Mirio, he summoned the Spirit Spear Chastafol in its second form, transforming it into a bear that absorbed Mirio's attack before knocking him out. Satisfied with the exercise, Deku decided it was time to explain his powers and his transformation into a being that was now 1/5 human. After a brief time skip, Deku finished explaining everything, leaving his classmates in disbelief. He shared the story of his life in prison, how he met the 7 deadly sins, and how they had changed him. He revealed that magic and other races were real, and the myths they had heard were indeed true. When Nejire asked if his personality had changed, Deku admitted that he had picked up some habits from the sins, including cooking skills and newfound intelligence from Merlin's teachings. He also mentioned that Meliodas had taught him some things he wasn't particularly proud of, which sparked curiosity among his classmates. Nejire, still curious, inquired about the one condition Deku had mentioned. Uraraka asked for clarification, and Nizu explained that they would need to complete some paperwork to fulfill Deku's request. While waiting for the next day, Deku decided to cook for a select group of friends, including Nejire, Bakugo, Mirio, Tamaki, All Might, Aizawa, and Nizu. He felt a connection with them, especially since Nizu had shown some belief in his innocence. As Deku prepared the meal, his classmates expressed their surprise at his culinary skills, which he attributed to his training with Ban, the fox Sin. He had only made enough food for his chosen friends, which left the others disappointed. However, Nejire's face turned crimson at the mention of her being Deku's girlfriend, a thought that echoed in her mind. Deku, too, felt a blush creeping onto his cheeks upon realizing the implications of his words. The day continued with Deku and Nejire spending time together, sharing kisses while Mirio and Tamaki playfully teased them. Meanwhile, the other members of Class 1A attempted to engage with Deku, only to find that he was not in the mood to entertain them. In another part of the story, Kota prepared to visit the wild pussycats, eager to see how Midoriya was faring. The next chapter promised to introduce new challenges and developments as Deku considered moving to Class 3A. The tale of the Sin hero Deku continued, filled with battles, friendships, and the exploration of newfound powers. The next day, Izuku woke up in his room, which still contained All Might's belongings. Although he didn't particularly like it, he felt too lazy to take everything down, so he decided to go back to sleep. Outside his room, Bakugo yelled, reminding him that it was the day of the first condition for his return. Sleepily, Izuku acknowledged Bakugo and eventually made his way downstairs to prepare some food for himself and Bakugo, eliciting jealousy from the others. After a brief time skip, they found themselves in Nizu's office. Nizu asked if Izuku was ready for the test that would determine his move to Class 3. Izuku confidently affirmed that he was ready. Nizu handed him a paper, explaining that he needed to score over 75% to pass. Surprised by the seemingly low requirement, Izuku expressed his pride, attributing it to his training under the sin of pride. After the test, Nizu was astonished to learn that Izuku had scored a perfect 100% in just 1 minute. Izuku admitted that the training he underwent under the sin of gluttony had been intense and traumatic, leaving him with nightmares. Nizu, concerned about what Izuku had experienced, reflected on the inhumane nature of the training. Inside Izuku's mindscape, Ban and Merlin discussed the impact of the training on him. Merlin acknowledged that while he had made Izuku incredibly smart, he had also inadvertently given him PTSD. They agreed that Merlin would apologize to Izuku later that evening. Later that day, Izuku attended Class 1A, using zero signs to avoid questions. After school, an announcement was made that Izuku would be moving to Class 3A, shocking everyone, especially the third years who questioned why a kid like him would join. Before they could voice their concerns, Izuku whispered to Nizu about their thoughts. Nizu defended Izuku, explaining that he had fought against the Big Three and Class 1A and B simultaneously, defeating them using only 2% of his maximum power. The third years were left in disbelief. Nizu then stated that Izuku had already completed the first 2 conditions for his return to UA and asked if he could be a training partner for Class 1A and B, as well as the Big Three and some pro heroes, to help increase their strength. Izuku agreed but requested to wait until the following week to get accustomed to being back at UA. As classes were set to restart the following week, Nizu encouraged everyone to enjoy their time. Izuku mentioned he would go to gather items for his new room and retrieve some belongings from his old room. Nejire expressed her longing to accompany him, and he happily agreed after changing clothes. Mirio jokingly teased them about their outing, suggesting it was a date, which they both denied in unison. Before leaving, Izuku opened the door to find the wild pussycats and Kota waiting for him. He greeted them warmly and explained his plans to buy things for his new room. Bakugo interrupted, claiming it was a date, which caused Izuku to protest loudly. The wild pussycats teased him about it, and as they chatted, Izuku noted Kota's shoes resembled his own, leading to a light-hearted exchange. He promised to continue their conversation if he returned before they left, then exited, bidding them farewell. As he stepped outside, he was met with a dark blade thrown in his direction, which he quickly dodged. The others, realizing it was Uraraka, exchanged farewells with him, relieved that they had narrowly avoided a mishap. The wild pussycats discussed the changes in Izuku, noting his scar near his left eye, which was a remnant of his time in prison. With the chapter coming to a close, the story shifted back to Izuku, who was now at the entrance of UA. Nejire greeted him, looking stunning in a red dress. Izuku was taken aback by her beauty, and she blushed at his compliment. They both exchanged kind words about each other's appearances, and as they prepared to leave, Nejire took his hand, causing him to blush even more. At the mall, Nejire asked if they were going to find items for his new room. Izuku agreed, suggesting they could go somewhere afterward. Nejire playfully asked if it was a date, and Izuku smiled, affirming that it was indeed a date. Excited, Nejire cheered, and Izuku reminded her to keep her voice down as they continued their outing. With a deeper blush, Nejire led the way, eager to enjoy their time together. After shopping for his new room, Deku and Nejire decided to spend some time together. Deku suggested watching a movie first, and Nejire eagerly agreed, expressing her longing to eat afterward and to shop for new clothes. Deku found it hard to resist her charming expression, which made Nejire blush. As they shared a moment of closeness, Deku felt his face heat up, and Nejire, noticing her own reaction, quickly apologized. However, in a spontaneous gesture, Deku leaned in and kissed her, and she reciprocated. He playfully mentioned that he might want to nibble on her ear later, which made her blush even more. They agreed to focus on the movie first before discussing anything further. They settled on watching the Sonic movie, which Nejire had not seen yet. After the film, they both shared their thoughts about it, with Nejire expressing her enjoyment and Deku agreeing that it was a great movie. They decided to head to a restaurant that Nejire had in mind. As they arrived, Deku commented on the restaurant's fancy atmosphere, and they found a table to sit at while waiting for their orders. When the waiter brought their food, they thanked him and enjoyed their meal, chatting and laughing together. Once they finished eating, Nejire excitedly suggested they go shopping for clothes. Deku followed her to the clothing store, where Nejire wanted his opinion on her outfits. She modeled a few different looks, and Deku complimented her, feeling a blush rise to his cheeks. Nejire appreciated his kind words, and as she tried on more clothes, she playfully asked for his honest opinion. Deku, trying to be polite, commented on her choices, but he felt a bit embarrassed when he noticed how revealing one of her outfits was. After a few more outfits, it was Deku's turn to choose clothes. Nejire admired his selections, and they both decided to finalize their purchases. They left the store and headed to an ice cream shop, where they each ordered their favorite flavors. As they walked back to UA with their ice cream, they enjoyed the delicious treats and playfully offered to share bites of each other's cones. This innocent act made them both blush, as they realized how NTMT the moment felt. As they reached UA, they laughed about their day and the fun they had. However, unbeknownst to them, a girl with chestnut hair watched from a distance, feeling a surge of jealousy. She was determined to win Deku back, no matter what it took. Meanwhile, Deku and Nejire remained blissfully unaware of the brewing tension, focused on their new room and the memories they were creating together. This chapter marked a significant moment in their relationship, and while it was just one date, it was filled with laughter, excitement, and the promise of more adventures to come. In a world where heroes and villains clashed, Izuku Midoriya, known as Deku, was on a journey to discover his true potential. He had recently adopted a new hero name, which symbolized his growth and determination. As he trained, he focused on enhancing his power levels, which had reached impressive heights. In his base form, he exhibited a physical power of 5,607, alongside formidable magical and defensive capabilities. As he progressed, Deku unlocked various forms, each more powerful than the last. With the Tier 1 demon mark, his physical power surged to 168,000, and he continued to push his limits with the Tier 2 demon mark, where his physical power soared to 249. Eventually, he reached the full demon mark, boasting a staggering 350,000 in physical power. In assault mode, his abilities peaked at 676,530, while in Demon King mode, he achieved an astonishing 10,000. Deku was not alone in his quest. His classmates from UA Class 1A stood by his side, each possessing unique quirks and strengths. Together, they formed a formidable team, with their combined physical power and defense making them a force to be reckoned with. The Big Three, Nejire Hado, Tamaki Amajiki, and Mirio Togata, were particularly powerful, each contributing significantly to the group's overall strength. Nejire, with her full-charged attack, showcased her quirk power at 1,490, while Tamaki displayed his own impressive abilities. Mirio, using One for All at 28%, demonstrated remarkable physical power and quirk potential. All Might, in his prime, represented the pinnacle of heroism, with his power levels reflecting his legendary status. As the story unfolded, a new enemy emerged, one that had yet to be introduced but promised to be a significant threat. This character would become the main villain of the series, challenging Deku and his friends in ways they had never imagined. With each chapter, the stakes grew higher, and Deku's determination to protect his friends and the world around him intensified. The journey ahead was filled with challenges, but with the support of his classmates and the strength he had cultivated, Deku was ready to face whatever came next. Once again, the story resumed with Izuku Midoriya, known as Deku, contemplating a significant change in his life. He had just returned to UA High School after a date with Nejirexdeku, during which they had purchased items for his new dorm room. Unbeknownst to them, a girl with brown hair had been observing them from a distance. As they arrived at UA, Deku expressed his intention to speak with Principal Nizu about changing his hero name and to see his new dorm. Nejire was curious about what name he planned to adopt. Deku revealed that he wanted to be called the Sin Hero, inspired by his training with the 7 deadly sins and Elizabeth. Nejire thought the name suited him, given his connection to their powers. After their conversation, Deku teleported to the principal's office. Upon arriving, Deku startled Principal Nizu, who welcomed him with curiosity. Deku stated his longing to change his hero name and explained the reasoning behind it. Nizu agreed, and after confirming that Deku's new room was soundproof, Deku thanked him and left, eager to set up his new space. In front of his old room, Deku prepared to clean up and move on. After an hour of tidying, he decided to teleport to Nejire and ask for her help in finding his new room. Bakugo, witnessing the moment, expressed his surprise at Deku's departure but reassured him that they could still hang out or train together. After a brief exchange, Deku teleported to his new room, which was larger than expected. He found a note from Bakugo, indicating that he had left food for Deku, magically kept warm. Deku was pleased with his new room and texted Nejire to come over. When she arrived, he asked her to stand outside while he tested the soundproofing. After recording himself shouting to check if the room was indeed soundproof, he stepped outside to ask Nejire if she had heard anything. She confirmed that she hadn't, and upon hearing the recording, she was impressed by the room's effectiveness. Deku and Nejire shared a moment of closeness, and as they spent time together, their feelings for each other deepened. They enjoyed each other's company, and the atmosphere became charged with affection. As they lay on the bed, their connection grew stronger, filled with warmth and intimacy. Deku felt a sense of happiness and contentment, realizing that this new chapter in his life was filled with possibilities, both as a hero and in his personal relationships. With the day ahead of them, Deku looked forward to exploring his new dorm, spending time with friends, and embracing the adventures that awaited him. Nejire felt a warmth enveloping her as she hugged Deku, recalling a lesson from one of her mentors, Meliodas. She remembered how he had been a bit of a rogue and had imparted some unconventional knowledge. Deku, aware of the implications of this knowledge, expressed his concerns about the potential consequences of what he had learned. Despite his reservations, he found himself drawn to the idea of exploring these newfound abilities, especially with Nejire's encouragement. Nejire was eager to experience more of what Deku had to offer, expressing her longing to continue their exploration together. Deku, feeling the same way, found himself in a position of control, surprising Nejire with his assertiveness. As he took the lead, he was determined to show her just how good it could feel when he was in charge. The intensity of their connection grew, and they both surrendered to the moment, lost in their shared experience. Deku's determination to please Nejire was evident as he pushed the boundaries of their encounter, and she responded with enthusiasm, urging him on. Their shared passion reached a peak, and they found themselves entwined, both physically and emotionally. Afterward, they lay together, basking in the afterglow of their experience. Deku, curious about Nejire's feelings, asked if she was satisfied or if she wanted to continue. Nejire, still filled with energy, expressed her longing to keep going, and Deku agreed, this time allowing her to take the lead. As they continued, they lost track of time, fully immersed in their connection. Eventually, exhaustion took over, and they both fell into a deep sleep, still intertwined. When Deku awoke, he felt a weight on him and realized it was Nejire, still asleep beside him. He gently poked her cheeks to wake her, and she groggily responded, still half asleep. Nejire quickly remembered their previous night and jumped off him, taking a pill from her bag with a hint of worry about the implications of their actions. Deku reassured her, promising to protect whatever came of their night together. They both decided to skip classes, focusing instead on training. Later, Deku suggested they train together, knowing that his friends would benefit from his guidance. The group, initially hesitant, agreed, knowing Deku's strength and ability to heal. They prepared for a rigorous training session, with Bakugo eager to test his limits. After a long day of training, Deku offered to cook for everyone, knowing they appreciated his culinary skills. They decided to head to Class 1A's dorms, where they could enjoy a meal together. Deku asked Mirio to fetch Eri, wanting to reconnect with her after a long time apart. As they moved forward, the bonds of friendship and camaraderie strengthened, setting the stage for new adventures ahead. In a bustling city, a group of friends gathered, each dealing with their own emotions. Mirio expressed his support for Deku, emphasizing that they were there for him during tough times. Nejire joined in, offering her comfort through a warm embrace. Bakugo, ever the blunt one, teased them about their closeness, but Deku blushed, revealing that he and Nejire had already shared a significant moment the day before. Bakugo, uninterested in the details, suggested they head back to the dorms for food. As they arrived at the dorm, Deku announced his intention to start cooking while Mirio brought Eri to join them. Nejire asked how everyone was feeling, and Ida expressed his sadness over betraying Deku, hoping for his forgiveness. Bakugo reminded them that their actions had hurt Deku deeply, and only a few had believed in his innocence until they saw the misleading video. Kirishima wondered if Deku could cook for them as well, and Tamaki hesitated, unsure if they should expect too much. Nejire decided to fly to Deku and ask if he would prepare food for everyone. He agreed, albeit reluctantly, still wishing to maintain their friendships despite the betrayal he had faced. Nejire returned to the group with the news that Deku would cook for them. The others cheered with excitement, eager to taste his renowned cooking. Eri, perched on Mirio's shoulder, expressed her joy at seeing Deku again. When the food was ready, Deku greeted Eri warmly, and she hugged him tightly, expressing how much she had missed him. They all sat down to eat, and Kirishima declared the meal to be divine, with everyone enthusiastically agreeing. Just as they were enjoying their meal, a newcomer entered the room, but before she could finish her greeting, Deku sensed danger and instinctively reacted. He confronted the intruder, who revealed her longing to speak with Nejire privately. Deku was suspicious but allowed Nejire to go, trusting her judgment. However, the atmosphere shifted when the intruder, Uraraka, made a threatening remark about staying away from Deku. Nejire stood her ground, asserting her relationship with Deku and revealing that they had grown closer. In a moment of desperation, Uraraka attacked Nejire, leading to a confrontation that escalated quickly. Deku, sensing the chaos, rushed to the scene, his protective instincts igniting. He confronted Uraraka, demanding to know why she had harmed Nejire. The tension in the air was palpable as Deku's anger surged, revealing his true power. In a moment of clarity, Deku chose to heal Nejire first, using his abilities to ensure her safety. He then contained Uraraka, preventing her from causing further harm. With a fierce determination, he decided to release his pent-up anger in a secluded area where he could unleash his power without harming anyone else. As he prepared to let loose, he recalled the moment he had sensed something was amiss and had decided to follow them. The betrayal weighed heavily on him, but he knew he had to protect those he cared about. With a fierce resolve, he stepped into the unknown, ready to confront the darkness that had invaded their lives. After the recent events involving Uraraka, she was expelled from UA. With his already unstable mindset, Deku revealed to everyone that the true traitor was Mineta. The reason for this revelation was that the League had promised Mineta a lot of women, given that his quirk had no combat use and he was known for his perverted behavior. Mineta was also expelled and sent to Tartarus. Following these incidents, the school was granted a 2-week break. However, unbeknownst to the students, a new threat loomed nearby and was set to strike that very day. The next morning, Nejire woke up and approached Deku, expressing concern for him after the previous day's events. She noticed his distress and tried to reassure him, but he pleaded with her not to bring up the incident, as it had nearly cost him her life. Deku's mental state was fragile, and he felt he was losing himself. Nejire encouraged him to stay true to who he was and inquired about his plans to recover his left eye. Deku responded that he could not promise anything regarding his eye and that forgiveness would take time. As they prepared for class, Nejire urged Deku to get ready so they wouldn't be late. Outside the dorms, Mirio greeted Deku and asked how he was coping with the previous day's events. Deku's cold stare made it clear that he did not want to discuss it further, expressing his frustration and anger. The atmosphere in class was tense, as Deku only answered the teacher's questions, his eyes reflecting a deep sadness. After classes, Tamaki invited Deku to hang out with them, hoping to lift his spirits. Although Deku agreed, his demeanor remained lifeless, leaving his friends concerned for his well-being. Unbeknownst to them, someone was stalking Deku, assessing his strength and potential. This observer was disappointed but saw an opportunity for a warm-up fight. In the city, the group decided to play some games before grabbing a bite to eat. After finishing their meal, they began walking back to the dorms when Deku suddenly sensed danger. He drew his sword, lost vein, and blocked an attack aimed at Nejire. His demeanor shifted from despair to fury as he confronted the attacker, who introduced himself as Dabera, the successor to the Ten Commandments, claiming to possess a quarter of the Demon King's power. This revelation alarmed Deku, who realized the gravity of the situation. Deku recalled that the sins were formed to combat the commandments, who collectively held immense power. He felt a surge of worry about whether he could defeat Dabera. As panic spread among his friends, Deku urged them to flee to UA for safety, insisting that their presence would only hinder him. Nejire, in tears, refused to leave him, but Deku rendered her unconscious to protect her. He promised Tamaki that he would return, though he knew he could not guarantee it. Dabera acknowledged Deku's choice to fight him one-on-one, taunting him about his inability to kill due to his commandment of pacifism. However, Deku countered with confidence, revealing that he possessed Merlin's infinity and Ban's immortality, which would allow him to withstand the commandment's effects. As he activated his powers, he prepared to engage Dabera, determined to prove himself. Meanwhile, Tamaki and Mirio rushed back to UA, hoping to avoid questions about Nejire's condition. When confronted by the teachers and the director, they struggled to explain why Nejire was unconscious, adhering to Deku's request for secrecy. The tension hung in the air as they awaited the outcome of the confrontation between Deku and Dabera. Tamaki provided an answer, expressing concern about a mysterious figure trying to keep them away. Aizawa inquired about the strength of this person, to which the group responded with uncertainty. They only knew that this individual possessed 10 commandments and held half of the Demon King's power. The commandments were created specifically to combat this figure, who also had a quarter of the Demon King's power. As the gravity of the situation sank in, Nizu spoke up, acknowledging that joining forces with this person might only hinder their efforts. They could only hope that he would be able to defeat the threat. Suddenly, a loud crash interrupted their thoughts, waking Nejire and filling the group with horror. The scene shifted back to the battle between Deku and Dabera, where the tension was palpable. Dabera began by taunting Deku, suggesting that using a weapon from the past would not yield the strength he needed. Deku, however, saw it as an opportunity to test Dabera's abilities. He unleashed a powerful attack, the Cruel Sun, but Dabera effortlessly caught and stopped it, remarking that it was not bad and that it was now his turn to strike. In an instant, Dabera appeared before Deku and delivered a punch that sent him flying. Realizing that his current weapon was insufficient, Deku decided to switch to the Morning Star Aldon, which was stronger than his previous choice. As he prepared for the next attack, Dabera charged at him, ready to engage in combat. Deku unleashed a powerful assault, but Dabera merely blocked it, indicating that he would need to take the fight more seriously. Deku transformed into a fairy, utilizing the arc from the goddess's part, causing Dabera to scream in pain for a brief moment. However, Dabera quickly regained his composure and acknowledged the pain, preparing for a more intense battle. Deku summoned the 8th form of Chastifol to protect himself and then unleashed the 2nd true form, transforming into a giant muscular bear with 6 arms. The bear clashed with Dabera, who decided to take the fight more seriously by using 15% of his power. The bear was eventually overpowered, and Dabera kicked it, sending it crashing down onto Deku. He remarked that Deku was forcing him to use more power than he had anticipated. But still, Deku was nowhere near half of Dabera's strength. Dabera began to laugh sadistically, prompting Deku to respond with a powerful attack using Chastifol. However, Dabera easily countered it, indicating that Deku's current strength was only worth 30% of his own power. As the battle continued, Deku summoned Lostvein and created 8 copies of himself to attack Dabera with a flurry of slashes. Although the attack hurt Dabera, he quickly healed himself using darkness. Dabera acknowledged Deku's efforts but stated that he was still not taking the fight seriously enough. He then activated his assault mode, enveloping Deku in darkness. Deku, realizing he needed to step up his game, activated his own demon mark and prepared for a more intense confrontation. He punched Dabera through several buildings, but Dabera reappeared in front of him, impressed by the punch. As the battle escalated, Deku combined his darkness with heavy metal to deliver a powerful blow to Dabera's gut, causing him to stumble back momentarily. Dabera, now fully engaged, released 40% of his power and summoned a sword made of darkness. The two clashed for several minutes, with Deku devising a plan. He created 3 clones using Lostvein, instructing them to activate Demon King mode while he recovered. Although the clones were weaker, they still fought valiantly against Dabera. As the fight progressed, Dabera activated 50% of his power, his body becoming enveloped in darkness, leaving only his hands, feet, and face visible. Deku, having healed for a brief moment, transformed into Demon King mode, matching the strength of his clones. Dabera recognized Deku as a worthy opponent, now considering him worth 50% of his power. Dabera proposed a deal. If Deku made the fight interesting enough, he would spare his friends and leave for now, promising to return later. Deku accepted the challenge, determined to prove himself in this fierce battle. Deku focused on protecting his friends for just a little longer. With determination, he prepared for the battle ahead. As Dabura charged at him, the two engaged in a relentless clash, their fists colliding repeatedly. Both fighters utilized darkness to heal their wounds, with Dabura forming claws from his dark energy while Deku relied on the power of his Demon King form. Despite his efforts, Deku felt himself being gradually overpowered by Dabura, and he realized that his 1-minute time limit was nearing its end. If he could not entertain Dabura, his friends would face dire consequences. Determined not to give up, Deku summoned 7 clones, each armed with one of the sacred treasures. Together, they unleashed their most powerful magic attack, directing it toward Deku. In response, he executed a full counter, combining their attacks to amplify their strength. He pushed the limits of his Demon King form, using the final moments of its power to enhance the assault. Once the attack was unleashed, he reverted to his normal state, and the clones vanished, leaving an exhausted Deku behind. A single thought consumed him. He hoped that the attack had been powerful enough to entertain Dabura, otherwise, both he and his friends would be lost. Through the smoke, Deku spotted a somewhat injured Dabura, who began to slow clap in appreciation. Dabura acknowledged the effort, stating that the last attack had forced him to use 57% of his power, a feat no one had achieved before, not even the Demon King. He praised Deku's performance, declaring it excellent, but then revealed the grim outcome of their deal. While he would spare Deku's friends, he would not spare Deku himself. With that, Dabura charged a punch enveloped in darkness and struck Deku with immense force. He then drew 7 swords, identical to those used by Esterasa to defeat Meliodas, and stabbed Deku in all 7 hearts. As he finished, Dabura remarked on the good fight, expressing a wish that they could continue battling, but acknowledging that it would not be possible. With a final blow, he sent Deku crashing toward Yue, where Deku ultimately lost his life upon impact with the walls. After his anger exploded, Deku confronted Uraraka, expressing his fury over her actions. He approached her with a determined stride, and she pleaded for mercy, promising she would not repeat her mistakes. However, Deku's disbelief in her words fueled his resolve to make her suffer. He began to strike her, delivering punches that, while not lethal, caused significant pain and injury. He continued to assault her, targeting her face and gut, ultimately sending her flying with a powerful uppercut. Meanwhile, their classmates grew concerned about their prolonged absence and decided to investigate. What they discovered horrified them. They hesitated to intervene when they noticed Nejire trapped in a perfect cube, realizing that Deku was consumed by rage. They chose to allow him to continue his assault on Uraraka, believing it was best to let him vent his anger. As Deku relentlessly punished Uraraka, he utilized his sacred treasures, inflicting even more damage. He unleashed his hell blaze and stabbed her, causing her insides to burn. This cycle of violence continued until he had used all of his powers multiple times, leaving her severely injured but still alive. After one final blow, he released Nejire from her confinement and carried her in his arms. He warned Uraraka that if she ever crossed his path again, he would send her to a place far worse than the pain she had just endured. With that, he walked away, cradling Nejire and expressing his hope that she would awaken soon so they could share their connection again. In Deku's mindscape, a few hours earlier, he had been torturing a brown-haired girl who had harmed his girlfriend. Diane observed in shock how the gentle Deku had transformed into someone unrecognizable in his quest for vengeance. Elizabeth voiced her concerns, fearing that if Deku continued down this path, he might lose control and harm others. Iliotas and the others shared her worries, hoping for the best for their friend. "Back at you," Nejire screamed in despair as she rushed to where Deku lay, believing him to be dead. She clung to his lifeless body, overwhelmed by disbelief. The others stood in shock, knowing that if his 7 hearts were struck, there would be no way to save him. They allowed Nejire to grieve, her cries echoing the pain of losing a powerful friend and ally. Nizu and the others shared in her sorrow, mourning the loss of someone who had always fought to protect them, even when faced with betrayal. As they contemplated burying Deku, the atmosphere was heavy with grief. Nejire's heart ached with the thought that he had sacrificed himself for their sake, despite the betrayal he had faced from many at the school. The group remained in silence, unwilling to leave the site of their loss. Suddenly, Nejire found herself in an unfamiliar place, questioning her surroundings. A mysterious voice responded, revealing that she was no longer on Earth. Confusion filled her mind as she sought answers about her situation and the identity of the voice that spoke to her. The story left readers on a cliffhanger, teasing the potential for new adventures and choices for the next narrative. After Deku's death, Nejire was heartbroken and spent 2 days in her room, overwhelmed by grief. She felt as if each day without him was a torment. Mirio, concerned for her well-being, knocked on her door to remind her it was time for class. Nejire reluctantly agreed to get ready, still consumed by her sorrow. Mirio, unaware of the depth of her pain, headed to class, leaving her to wallow in her thoughts. Once classes were over, Mirio suggested they grab something to eat. Tamaki, who preferred to avoid crowds, expressed his longing for a quiet meal. They made their way to the cafeteria, where Mirio enthusiastically commented on the food, but Nejire remained silent, lost in her thoughts. The others noticed her silence but chose not to press her, unaware of the turmoil brewing beneath the surface. After their meal, Nejire announced her intention to return to her room. Just as she reached the door, a massive explosion rocked the building. Mirio, shocked, could only utter his disbelief at the chaos unfolding. Dabera, the source of the explosion, had returned, intent on wreaking havoc. He declared his intent to eliminate everyone at UA, revealing his disdain for their weakness. He had come to settle the score, believing that the students were far inferior to the one he had fought previously. Nejire was his first target, chosen because of her connection to Deku. However, as he swung his hand to strike, she vanished. Dabera was taken aback, unable to comprehend how she had escaped. He soon realized that she had returned stronger than before. In a moment of surprise, she found herself face to face with Deku, who had miraculously come back to life. Their reunion was filled with relief and joy, but there was no time to waste. Deku reassured Nejire of his strength and promised he would protect her. With a renewed sense of purpose, Deku turned to face Dabera. The two adversaries prepared for battle, each eager to prove their strength. Dabera, confident in his abilities, taunted Deku, who remained calm and focused. As they clashed, the intensity of their fight escalated. Dabera boasted about his power, while Deku revealed that he was only using a fraction of his potential. As the battle raged on, Deku summoned his weapon, combining its power with his own. He unleashed a powerful attack, demonstrating the training he had undergone in purgatory. Dabera, caught off guard by Deku's newfound strength, felt the impact of the assault. The fight was fierce, and both combatants pushed their limits, determined to emerge victorious. In this rematch, the stakes were higher than ever, and the outcome would determine the fate of everyone at UA. The clash of their powers echoed through the halls, a testament to their resolve and the bonds they fought to protect. Deku had survived and emerged stronger than ever. He expressed his boredom while proposing a challenge to Dabera, suggesting that he train in purgatory for 1,440 years before they fought again, this time to the death. Dabera, still in pain, reluctantly accepted the challenge, vowing that he would be ready to kill Deku next time. After hearing Dabera's response, Deku released him and turned to the rest of UA High. Mirio was the first to recognize him, expressing disbelief at Deku's survival. Bakugo, shocked, could only manage to comment on Deku's unexpected return. Tamaki echoed the surprise, noting that they had thought he was dead. Deku explained that he had spent 2,880 years training in purgatory, where time moved differently. 1 minute in the real world equated to 1 year in purgatory. He reassured them that he had not truly been gone for long. Nejire asked why he had been in purgatory, and Deku recounted how he had received his demon powers from Meliodas, who was cursed to send his emotions to purgatory upon death. This curse would allow Meliodas to revive after a few days, but each death stripped him of his emotions, making him more like the cold-hearted leader he once was. Fortunately, Deku's emotions remained intact, preventing him from becoming like Meliodas. Deku continued, explaining that he had become significantly stronger due to the harsh conditions of purgatory, where the air was both freezing cold and blazing hot, and the ground was toxic. He had endured extreme pain, with his skin burned, frozen, or melted off more than 100 times, all of which contributed to his newfound strength. He had only used 10% of his power in the previous fight and hoped for a more challenging battle next time. As Deku answered their questions, the group realized they had only 1 day of respite before Dabera returned, stronger than before. They understood the gravity of the situation. If Deku died again, he would not be able to return, as Meliodas's curse would activate, leading to his true demise. After addressing their inquiries, Deku decided to rest, summoning a pillow from his spirit spear and announcing his intention to take a nap. As he left for his room, Nejire remained in shock over the revelations about Deku's time in purgatory and how much stronger he had become. She recalled her curiosity about his training and what he had experienced there. In a flashback, Deku remembered the trials he faced in purgatory. He recounted the unbearable pain and the challenges of fighting a creature that Meliodas had deemed the weakest. Meliodas had explained that Deku's human weaknesses were a hindrance, but enduring these trials would ultimately make him stronger. He was reminded that the harsh conditions were necessary for him to grow powerful enough to protect those he cared about. Returning to the present, Nejire walked to Deku's room, pondering the implications of what Meliodas had taught him. She was determined to uncover the truth behind his training, especially the part about it being better for her and more pleasurable. She felt a surge of protectiveness, vowing to confront anyone who might threaten her relationship with Deku. In front of Deku's room, Nejire knocked and asked if she could come in, expressing a need to talk. Deku replied that the door was open. With a curious look, Nejire inquired about what Meliodas had taught Deku during his time in purgatory. After a brief explanation, Deku shared the lessons he had learned, hinting at some secrets that would soon be revealed. He then posed a question to Nejire, asking if she wanted to engage in a more NTMT experience again, confirming that she was on BRH control. Nejire hesitated but admitted that she remembered the concept of pleasure from before arriving. Sensing her readiness, Deku suggested they begin. He approached her, and their connection deepened as they shared a kiss. Deku noticed how excited Nejire was, and with a playful smirk, he teased her about her state. As they continued, Deku began to explore her body, eliciting soft sounds of pleasure from Nejire. Deku, eager to apply what he had learned, summoned clones of himself. Nejire immediately understood what was about to happen and looked at him with anticipation. The original Deku addressed his clones, assigning them roles, and they prepared to proceed. As they engaged in their NTMT activities, Deku noted that Nejire might not be able to walk the next day due to the intensity of their experience. Despite his concern, Nejire affirmed her longing to continue. With a mix of excitement and determination, Deku and his clones intensified their actions, leading to a climactic moment that left Nejire in a state of bliss. Afterward, as the clones vanished, Deku explained his reasoning for their departure, expressing his longing to protect Nejire from being overwhelmed. Exhausted but satisfied, she succumbed to sleep, while Deku contemplated the mess left behind and the upcoming battle he would face. In Purgatory, Meliodas reveled in the strength gained from training, anticipating a future confrontation with his enemy. Meanwhile, Deku reflected on his life and the events that had transpired, acknowledging the quietness surrounding him and the safety measures in place for the upcoming fight against Dabera. He and Nejire shared a moment of connection, with her expressing gratitude for his support, especially after the intensity of their previous encounter. As they approached a safe spot where other students were gathered, Deku explained the precautions taken to protect everyone from potential threats. He had devised a plan to ensure their safety during his battle, utilizing his clones to expedite the process. After confirming that Nejire would be safe inside, he shared a final kiss with her, promising to return and keep her safe. Nejire playfully warned him to keep his promise, while Deku reassured her with a smile. With a sense of purpose, he prepared for the fight ahead, knowing that the stakes were high and the outcome uncertain. Deku walked away with a worried thought. He hoped he could keep the promise he made, but he had told a lie about Meliodas revealing to him the truth in Purgatory after half of the years he trained there. He would be happy as long as he could be with her, but after that, he would be sad because everyone he knew would be gone. They always said being immortal was a blessing, but in his opinion, it was nothing more than a curse. As he wandered through the abandoned city, he felt the weight of his thoughts. In Purgatory, Dabera reveled in his newfound strength. He felt exhilarated, ready to face Izuku in what he believed would be a legendary fight. Despite feeling somewhat cheap for using his own power, he was determined to end Deku's life. He created a portal to Earth, where Deku awaited him. Upon arriving, Deku stood ready for battle. He acknowledged Dabera's presence and expressed excitement for the fight ahead. Despite recognizing Dabera's battle-maniac personality, Deku agreed that it would indeed be a thrilling encounter. Dabera took his battle stance, eager to begin, and Deku mirrored his movements. They charged at each other, their fists colliding with tremendous force, each intent on defeating the other. As they engaged, both fighters staggered back slightly from the impact, groaning in pain. They quickly regained their composure and charged again. Deku summoned his sacred treasure and attempted to use a powerful technique, but it failed to produce the desired effect. Instead, he siphoned some of Dabera's physical power and prepared for another attack. However, Dabera countered, swatting the weapon from Deku's hands and launching a punch. Deku caught Dabera's fist, and they both powered up, ready to unleash their abilities. Dabera conjured a blade of darkness while Deku formed two small suns of energy in his hands. Realizing the threat, Dabera decided to take the fight more seriously. He created blocks of darkness to counter Deku's attack, resulting in a small explosion upon impact. Before Dabera could react, Deku summoned a powerful guardian and engaged Dabera in combat. Unbeknownst to Dabera, Deku had additional surprises in store, including giant bears that aided him in the fight. As the battle raged on, Deku unleashed a devastating attack that overwhelmed Dabera. Despite his efforts to defend himself, Dabera found himself struggling against the onslaught. He used half of his power to hold off the bears while Deku charged another powerful attack. Just as he was about to unleash it, Dabera activated his full demon mark and rushed at Deku, catching him off guard. The resulting blast destroyed parts of the city, but Deku had ensured the safety of others beforehand. Deku quickly recovered from the blow and activated his own full demon mark, charging at Dabera once more. Their powers clashed, neither gaining the upper hand. As the fight continued, Deku began to grow in size, his power surging. Dabera realized he was facing a formidable opponent. With a cocky grin, Deku taunted Dabera, challenging him to continue the fight. The two fighters prepared for the final round, each summoning their most powerful abilities. Deku unleashed a divine axe while Dabera entered a new mode of power. They launched their attacks simultaneously, resulting in a massive explosion that created a deep chasm in the ground. Both fighters rose from the rubble, bloodied but unyielding. Dabera, fueled by darkness, increased his power further, ready to continue the battle. The clash between these two titans was far from over, and the outcome remained uncertain as they prepared for the next phase of their epic confrontation. As the afternoon approached its end, Deku realized he needed to act quickly. He decided to unleash his ultimate power, knowing that time was running out. Both he and Dabura faced each other, each filled with a fierce determination to win. Deku wore a calm expression, masking the intensity of his resolve, while Dabura sported a wide grin, equally intent on defeating his opponent. They began to step toward one another, the tension in the air palpable as they prepared for the final confrontation. This marked the conclusion of Chapter 16 in the Sin Hero series, where the ultimate battle unfolded. It was important to note that Deku refrained from using additional fusion attacks. Although these attacks could be more powerful, they were not always compatible with his abilities. For instance, the combination of arc and earth manipulation often resulted in a weakened strike. As the story progressed, the next chapter would delve deeper into the narrative, exploring new developments and challenges. Izuku Midoriya had been battling fiercely against Dabura, neither of them willing to yield as they pushed their powers to new heights. The fight had escalated to a point where both had activated their most powerful forms. Izuku launched himself at Dabura, unleashing a torrent of energy that manifested as multiple miniature suns, while Dabura countered with a condensed version of his dark flames, which he had enhanced by merging it with his own darkness. The two attacks collided, resulting in a massive explosion that rivaled the force of a nuclear bomb. As the dust settled, Izuku stood battered and bloodied, while Dabura appeared shrouded in darkness, his body marked with scars. They charged at each other once more, exchanging powerful blows. However, in a moment of desperation, Dabura's eyes lost their color, and he transformed into a colossal dark monster, complete with horns and wings. He reveled in his newfound freedom, proclaiming himself the Demon King, much to Izuku's confusion. In the midst of the chaos, Izuku recalled a crucial lesson from his mentor, Meliodas. He remembered the warning about fusing their powers together, an act that would grant him immense strength but at a great cost. Despite the tears in his eyes, he resolved to use this last resort. Suddenly his power surged beyond its limits. His form grew larger, adorned with 6 wings and a mix of divine and demonic features. He soared into the air, ready to confront the Demon King. The Demon King unleashed a powerful blast, but Izuku countered with a ray of light infused with sunshine. The battle intensified, with Izuku dodging attacks and retaliating with his own. He summoned dark tendrils from the ground, but with a swift motion, he freed himself and launched a series of devastating attacks. He called upon the powers of his allies, creating clones that wielded the legendary weapons of the 7 deadly sins. Together, they launched a final assault on the Demon King, overwhelming him with a barrage of attacks that ultimately severed him in half. As the dust settled once more, Izuku found himself on the ground, exhausted and heartbroken. He watched as his friends began to fade away, knowing this moment had been inevitable. With a heavy heart, he vowed to protect the world for as long as he could, a promise that brought smiles to the faces of those he had fought alongside. As he approached the defeated Dabura, ready to finish the fight, he was surprised when Dabura spoke. He expressed gratitude for being freed from the Demon King's control, revealing that he had never wished to be a puppet of evil. Despite his weakened state, he offered to help Izuku, acknowledging the strength of their battle. Izuku, still in shock, dropped his weapon, which shattered upon impact. He learned that the darkness he had fought against was intertwined with Deborah himself. Each blow he had landed had weakened the Demon King, allowing Deborah to finally break free. They both sat together, looking up at the sky, knowing that their fight would be remembered for years to come. It had been a long journey, but after their generation, the heroes decided to let the next take care of itself while remaining vigilant against any powerful beings that might appear. They exchanged a fist bump, already anticipating the challenges of the next day. 4,000 years had passed since Izuku's battle with Deborah. Following his victory, the world celebrated, and Deborah, having been freed from the influence of the Demon King, chose to fight for good. Izuku became the #1 hero, while Deborah took the second position. The crime rate plummeted to an astonishing low, but after 8 years, both heroes stepped down, allowing the new generation to take control. 3 years after his fight with Deborah, Izuku and Nejire welcomed their first 3 children, naming them after his mentors, Meliodas, Ban, and King. The following year, they had 2 more children, whom they named Merlin and Galv. The next year brought another set of triplets, named Escaner, Diane, and Elizabeth, who bore a striking resemblance to their namesakes. Izuku and Nejire married 2 years after his battle with Deborah. Uraraka, having been released from prison, was sentenced to life for her attempt to harm Izuku's children and Nejire. Izuku used a bit of his magic to extend her lifespan to 2,000 years, ensuring she would endure a long period of suffering. Todoroki and Momo had a daughter who exhibited a unique quirk that allowed her to create anything she understood, enhanced by her ability to manipulate fire and ice. Kaminari and Gyre had a daughter who resembled Gyru and possessed a quirk that allowed her to use electric earphone jacks, a combination of her parents' abilities. Tsuyu and Tokoyami welcomed a son with a frog-like appearance and a shadowy companion reminiscent of a dark shadow. Mina and Kirishima had 3 children. 2 inherited one of their parents' quirks, while the third possessed a mix of both, enabling him to harden his body and produce acid for enhanced defense and offense. Ida and Mei had a child who inherited both of their quirks, granting him keen vision and Ida's engine abilities. Kami and Bakugu surprised everyone by having a daughter who could create illusions that had explosive potential. She inherited her father's fiery personality, albeit in a milder form. Toru and Ojiro had a daughter who could turn invisible at will, partially hiding her body and sporting a tail. Mineta unexpectedly had 2 children, a son and a daughter, with someone who shared a similar personality. They possessed a stronger version of Mineta's quirk, allowing them to produce sticky ball from anywhere on their bodies at will, and fortunately, they did not inherit his more troublesome traits. As Izuku and Nejire reached their mid-adult years, around 3,000 years old, their children naturally enjoyed long lifespans and surprisingly inherited the abilities of the figures they were named after. They formed a group called the New 7 Deadly Sins, which became the #1 hero team after graduating from UA. Tragically, All Might passed away 40 years later, followed by many others who chose not to extend their lives. Izuku's wife had died a millennium ago, but their children had grandchildren who began dating descendants of Izuku's old classmates. Izuku and Deborah had trained together, regaining some of their powers, now at 50% of what they had been during their last fight. A month ago, Izuku met a 15-year-old girl who reminded him of Nejire, leading him to believe she was her reincarnation. After a week of getting to know her, he felt certain of this connection. They began dating, and he shared with his children that she was their mother's reincarnation, which brought them joy as they introduced her to their girlfriends. Izuku extended Nejire's lifespan once more, ensuring they could live together for the same duration and pass on together. Currently, they stood atop a skyscraper, gazing at the future city below. Izuku rose to his feet, and with Nejire by his side, they clasped hands and leaped from the building. As he summoned divine and demonic wings, they soared into the sky, laughing and smiling, unaware of what life still had in store for them. With a strong support system and a loving family, Izuku felt confident they could face any challenge that lay ahead. This marked the end of his story, the tale of the Sin hero who had been betrayed. There would be no new chapter today or the following day, as the author needed time to consider the direction of the next installment. Typically, the author would write spontaneously, allowing their feelings to guide the narrative. However, this time, a new enemy was to be introduced, and careful thought was required for the introduction and the ensuing battle. Unlike previous encounters, this fight would not be one-sided, and the author aimed to create a longer chapter, exceeding 3,000 words, compared to their usual length of 1,500 to 1,700 words. Previously, in the tale of the Sin Hero, the protagonist, Deku, had faced Deborah, the successor of the Ten Commandments. During this intense battle, Deku had been granted a quarter of the Demon King's power, which highlighted just how much weaker he was in comparison to Deborah. Ultimately, Deku had fallen in battle, but there was a twist. He would return to the story. In a strange realm, Deku found himself questioning his surroundings. He learned that he was in purgatory and was surprised to see Meliodas, a demon who could enter this place due to a curse he once bore. Meliodas informed Deku that he had fought valiantly, but he had not been strong enough to unleash his full potential. This revelation shocked Deku, who struggled to comprehend that he still possessed untapped powers. Meliodas explained that while Deku had used his Demon King form, he could actually combine all his forms to become even stronger. He recalled a moment during the battle when he had achieved a glimpse of this ability while in his assault mode. Deku was eager to learn how to harness this power, but Meliodas delivered the daunting news that it would take a staggering 2,880 years to mstr. Deku was taken aback, realizing that while he might be nearly immortal, his friends would age and pass away during that time. Meliodas reassured him that time in purgatory was different. 1 minute there equated to 1 year in the living world, meaning his friends would only experience 2 days of absence. With this understanding, Meliodas began the training process. He first removed the protective shield that had kept Deku safe while he was unconscious, subjecting him to the harsh conditions of purgatory. The environment was both freezing and scorching, and the ground was toxic, making the training incredibly challenging. Meliodas explained that he had endured this realm for much longer than he could remember and that Deku would eventually acclimate to the harshness of the surroundings. Deku felt the pain of the environment but was determined to grow stronger. He resolved to protect his friends and the person he loved, vowing that he would win the next battle against Deborah. Meliodas encouraged him to rise and begin the training, emphasizing the importance of becoming stronger to ensure victory in their next encounter. With determination shining in his eyes, Deku prepared to face the challenges ahead, ready to embrace the training that would lead him to greatness.